40 acres and a mule, a broken legal order and promise issued in 1865, has become the true representation of the status of black people in modern America. It shows the system and those in government don't care about black people at all. This will change now. But why is this promise, which is backed by the Constitution, not being fulfilled even after 160 years? Wait for a moment here and really think about that. The confiscated land during the American Civil War was pledged to be given to former slaves, in addition to mules that could be used to cultivate the land. The goal was to make black families self-sufficient. However, after 160 years, no one dares to talk about it. It's because most people, including African Americans, have lost all hope. They have become disillusioned, believing that expecting this is a waste of time. Interestingly, that's precisely what white supremacists want. They want black people to get tired and forget this forever. But we cannot let that happen. In this video, we will explain how you can get your 40 acres and a mule, which will be a tractor now, as a black American. We will also explain how numerous groups have gotten reparations and what they did to get it, so the same course of action can be followed. Let's get started.
The Black History Archives.
First, let's briefly understand what 40 acres and a mule are. The phrase 40 acres and a mule refers to a promise made to freed African Americans after the Civil War. It originated from Special Field Order No. 15, issued by Union General William T. Sherman in January 1865. This order set aside confiscated Confederate land along the coasts of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida for newly freed black families to settle. Each family was promised up to 40 acres of land, and in some cases, surplus army mules were provided to help them cultivate the land and build a livelihood. The idea behind this promise was to address the profound economic injustice of slavery. By granting land, the federal government aimed to provide freedmen with the means to sustain themselves, build wealth, and establish economic independence. Land ownership was viewed as a critical step for formerly enslaved people to integrate into society on equal footing. The redistribution of land from former Confederate owners to freed African Americans was also seen as a form of reparations for the unpaid labor extracted during slavery. However, this promise was short-lived. Later in 1865, President Andrew Johnson overturned Sherman's order and returned the confiscated land to its previous Confederate owners. This was a betrayal. The promise that was made to gain the support of former slaves during the time of the Civil War could not be reversed. It showed the future events where black people would be promised and used, and then promises would be broken. This reversal left millions of freed African Americans without land, wealth, or any resources to support themselves. The failure to deliver on 40 acres and a mule became a defining betrayal, contributing to the systemic racial inequality and wealth gap that continues to affect black communities today. Now let's move on to how black Americans can get 40 acres and a mule today. The idea behind that is simple. It will offer justice for the suffering, wealth stolen, and opportunities denied during slavery and beyond. For that, first, black people should unite as a community. That's because unity is the foundation of any successful movement. Reparations require collective action because the scale of the demand, which is justice for generations of harm, is too large for individuals to achieve alone. By uniting, black people can strengthen their voices, share resources, and present a powerful, organized front. To begin, communities should form or join organizations like NARCI, National African American Reparations Commission, or NCOBRA, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, which are already equipped with strategies and resources. Holding meetings, workshops, and online discussions can help educate people about the importance of reparations and how they can contribute. Pooling resources, even small contributions, can fund the hiring of expert lawyers, researchers, and organizers. Finally, building alliances across states and creating a national movement through partnerships with churches or civic groups will showcase collective power. That's what Japanese Americans did during World War II, successfully uniting together to demand reparations and convincing Congress to act. Black communities can follow this model to achieve their goals. Here's a reminder to please support us so we can make more videos for you by subscribing to our channel and giving the video a like. We want to build a strong community and we need your support. Let's continue now. And then black people should leverage their voting powers. Politicians make decisions based on who votes for them. Black communities can use their collective voting power to make reparations a key political issue and demand action from elected officials. The first step is identifying candidates at all levels who openly support reparations and will back legislation like H.R. 40, which calls for a federal reparations commission. Before elections, communities can negotiate agreements with candidates, ensuring they commit to reparations in writing heading, "No More Empty Promises." Furthermore, organizing voter drives ensures maximum voter turnout, with reparations as the central issue. Supporting politicians, especially black leaders who genuinely represent the community's interests, is critical. One example of using voting power is the civil rights movement, which used strategic voting to pass landmark legislation like the Civil Rights Act. Similarly, black voters can leverage their power to prioritize reparations on the political agenda. Then the next step would be to build a legal team and prepare for a class action case. And that's because a class action lawsuit allows a group to collectively sue for damages, making it a powerful tool for demanding accountability from the government and institutions that profited from slavery. Taking such a case to the Supreme Court could set a historic precedent, forcing reparations to become a reality. To do this, communities need to hire skilled lawyers specializing in civil rights, class actions, and reparations. Building a compelling case involves gathering evidence such as historical records of slavery's economic contributions, studies on the racial wealth gap, and personal testimonies from descendants of enslaved people. Defendants could include institutions that profited from slavery like banks, insurance companies, and universities, as well as the federal government, which sanctioned slavery and segregation. The ultimate goal is to push the case through the courts and, if necessary, to the Supreme Court, where a favorable ruling could establish a legal mandate for reparations. One example of this is when black farmers won a $1.25 billion settlement against the U.S. Department of Agriculture for discrimination, demonstrating the power of collective legal action. The next step will be to demand land and financial reparations. In the Supreme Court, it should be conveyed what black people want today. 40 acres and a mule was indeed promised, but that's a 160-year-old promise. In other words, this should be increased because what was promised was actually exploited by someone else, and that should also be included in the demand. After having deep consultations with the lawyers and commissions on slavery reparations, an amount of money or land should be decided that can be demanded in court. An example of that is the Maori people in New Zealand, who fought for decades to reclaim stolen land and secure financial compensation. Their success highlights the importance of persistence when demanding land reparations. The next step should be to stay persistent and mobilized, and this is most important because reparations won't happen overnight. Success requires long-term dedication, resilience, and community support. Therefore, you have to ensure you remain mobilized instead of giving up. Organizing protests and marches can keep reparations in the national spotlight, while educating the public through stories, data, and research can build broader support. Social media is a powerful tool for spreading the message and connecting with allies. Staying united and focused on the shared goal, even in the face of setbacks, is key to maintaining momentum. Black communities must unite, organize, and take decisive action to demand reparations for slavery. By building a strong legal case, leveraging political power, and staying persistent, the dream of 40 acres and a mule can finally be realized. And yes, reparations aren't just about financial compensation, they are about justice, dignity, and creating a future where black communities can thrive. Together, this fight can succeed. Today, some people believe that the promise of 40 acres and a mule was a surface-level pledge, which was never meant to be fulfilled. However, records suggest that black people started receiving 40 acres and a mule, but after some time, they were deprived of them. In the digital archives of the Smithsonian's Freedmen's Bureau collection, black and white images of crumpled, smudged slips of paper reveal a remarkable chapter of history. One of these documents, dated 1865, recorded Fergus Wilson as the recipient of 40 acres on Sapelo Island, Georgia. These documents, part of a folder labeled Unbound Miscellaneous Records, are pieces of a larger forgotten story about America's broken promise to formerly enslaved people. However, nearly all the land was reclaimed just 18 months later, leaving these freed families without the resources they were promised. In addition to land titles, the folder included logs where Freedmen's Bureau agents meticulously recorded the names of hundreds of free people who received land parcels in Georgia under the program. These records, scanned from microfilm, capture a fleeting moment in history when the U.S. government attempted and ultimately failed to provide reparations to those who have been enslaved. Despite their historical importance, these land titles have been largely overlooked. While some historians have referenced their existence, the images of the documents have rarely been published, and there has been little effort to trace the descendants of those named in the records. Using genealogical research, census data, and advanced tools like image recognition algorithms, efforts to identify living descendants of those who received land have yielded fascinating results. Over the course of extensive research, the names of more than 1,200 freed people who were issued land titles in Georgia and South Carolina were identified. These titles accounted for over 26,000 acres of land seized from Confederate plantations. Among these individuals were freedmen like Fergus Wilson, Jim Hutchinson, and Pompey Jackson, whose descendants were traced using genealogical methods and archival research. The Freedmen's Bureau archives offer a rare glimpse into this critical moment in history. With nearly 1.8 million records now digitized, volunteers and researchers continue to transcribe and uncover new details. These efforts have brought renewed attention to the stories of those who received land but were deprived later and the systemic challenges they face. Would you like to get your 40 acres and a tractor, which is your right as a Black American? Are you willing to unite and become a class that can reach the Supreme Court for their right and get it? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on the opinion that 40 acres and a mule or slavery reparations are not being given because no one has demanded them staunchly. Would you like us to make more videos? If yes, please support us by subscribing to the Black History Archives and clicking the bell icon. You can check out more videos on our channel too.